build on Dak and how he believes the offense is going to evolve, I have a couple of questions for you. Do you think it'll be noticeably different, and then will it be noticeably better? Is this just a different flavor of ice cream, or is this going to be, a significant adjustment for the Cowboys that's going to have an impact? Steve says, I've got all the faith in the world we can win this thing with Dak because we know him. We know what he's about. His leadership skills are undeniable, impeccable work ethic. Other than he hadn't won some key playoff games, he's everything you want in a QB. From the day he walked in the door, he's won a lot of games. We just got to get over the hump. You guys have that faith in Dak?
If there's enough talent around him, I still believe he can be a quarterback that gets it done. I don't believe that they will put the necessary talent around him to get it done because they still view him through a lens of like one of these premium quarterbacks that can be the difference maker when you cut some corners on your roster building and your team building. And so, but he is not that guy. We've seen it. He's good enough with a bunch of talent around him, but have you paid him too much now in the Cowboys' eyes to put the necessary talent around him? When it comes to the offense, I do think you'll see some considerable change. And one of the things will just be in having a philosophy where they lean on, so they have staples. Whereas Kellen Moore, you'll find him middle of the pack in all these different categories. How often did you use motion? How often did you use play action? All these different things where it's like you're just in the middle. One week you go heavy with it. The next week it's not really there. You didn't have any things that were the backbone of your offense. And I think at the very least with McCarthy and Schottenheimer, you're going to see, hey, there's going to be a team that's going to lean on play action.
More cohesiveness. Yeah, and the play calling and play design.
Here's the things that we do, and week to week, you're gonna see these things. And I think they'll lean into play action, which will help Dak, and that's the one thing that I feel confident will be better.
Let me follow up with Chief real quick, because I think it's interesting. I consider Chiafalo maybe the most positive guy at the station when it comes to, looking at what's possible, but he's also realistic. But I kind of got a vibe from you, Chief, that maybe you feel like for the foreseeable future, the Cowboys are not contenders no matter how many regular season games they win because they won't build a roster good enough.
That's 100% the way I feel, because and part of it is
even with the way they draft,
even with the way that you've seen. I mean, how often you can be a really good regular season team and you can draft well. Ultimately, even drafting well means you're going to miss on Jalen Tolbert. You're going to miss on Kelvin Joseph. It's not going to be enough to compete with the teams that are also drafting well and then throwing money at free agents or big swings in the trade. Like, you're not the only team that drafts well. And even if you're the best in the league, you're not so much better than everybody else that you can neglect trading for big-name players or big-time players and neglect signing big-time players.
I think that's a great point. Jones discussed Mike's role in putting Dak in a better position to succeed, right? And I sort of agree with what Chiafalo's got going on over there. I do think there's a chance, though, that they do add a catalyst weapon. And if they do that, then maybe things change enough with everything, So Jones, but for now, all we can really hope on is that Mike McCarthy makes Dak a better player. He's observed for 3 years, Stephen said of Mike McCarthy. I think he's been a super leader in the aspect in terms of having the respect for Kellen and the offensive group working with Dak, and that was the better way of doing it. He believes now, although they believe in a lot of things the same, there's that 15 to 20% that they don't, and I think that Mike just thinks they'll do more with the way he wants to do it, and that will be a better offensive football team.
What if they figure out that the coach wasn't the problem?
I think that's very possible.
I mean, what if they figure out that all of a sudden that the offense doesn't move? I mean, is that going to be on McCarthy or is that going to be on Dak? That they don't have the seasonal success that they've had, where they're a top 5 offense in the league. They're high, with the top 5 in scoring offenses,
and then they fizzle out in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, are they going to figure out that it? What if it is the quarterback? I mean, I'm getting vibes already from, Stephen Jones even talked about it, and I confirmed with some guys there in Indianapolis, like they're going to extend this guy.
Yeah,
they're going to stretch this thing out, and they'd like to do it. And we'll see if Dak and them let it happen.
Let me ask you guys this, because I think what we're going to be looking at is three different things. Okay, number one, you're looking at asking Dak maybe to throw to players on the move a little bit more in a West Coast offense. Number two, you're getting more continuity in the game plan, right? And that's not going to impact Dak at all. And then number three, I think you're going to get more of a commitment to running the same plays with the run game and being better at executing that. I think Kellen Moore looked at the running game as something that supported the passing game, where Mike McCarthy is going to practice and emphasize it. You're going to get to a point in the season where you're like, wow, I'm really glad we've been working on this stuff, because as the season goes on, we're still able to execute that. So I think you could ask more of Dak, and he could very well fail. But Mike McCarthy's experience as a play caller, his continuity, and his emphasis could still make this offense better, maybe even in January.
Yeah, I think that I'm excited to see what McCarthy can do. If that ends up happening, Brian, I think you're going to be locked in on the quarterback. So I think that they would end up moving on from the coach. Again, I don't think they'd end up moving on from the quarterback, because what are you going to do? You've now got yourself tied financially to Dak. So I don't know, have you hamstrung yourself to the point where now that's a contract that you can't trade? That if you cut him, it's now too big of a dead cap hit. That's the stuff that you need to look into when you go ahead and extend, and that's the debate that we had on Friday. Is it better to just go ahead and eat the big cap hit so that you keep flexibility at the quarterback position, so that you can go into this season and and you have those answers, right? Yeah. Because I think that's something that you're going to find out pretty quickly this year.
You can make an argument that if it doesn't work out and Dak fails, to make this offense go, that maybe a team could move on, but it's clear this team is sticking with him probably for at least the next 6 years.
And I think Dak's a good quarterback. You guys know I've been the last one on the show that's been fighting for the guy. There's any given Sunday, Dak can look like a dude who's a top 5, top 8 quarterback, but there's Sundays where he looks like he's anywhere from 12 to 20, where he doesn't play good football. It's the consistency issues within his game. Maybe Mike McCarthy can help correct some of that. I do want to say that I don't think the turnovers, this is the first year that we've really seen the interceptions be as big of an issue as it was. I'd like to say that's one that's more of an anomaly than it's going to be the norm heading into next year. That's something he's going to have to get corrected. But they've got to do a better job of finding a way to get him some more help around him. I know that's an issue that was just this year. It's not an issue that's been a problem for the majority of his career. But they can't just rely on the draft this offseason to do it. They've got to do a different job with the way they build this football team and look at trades and look at free agency and quit just bargain shopping when it comes to that stuff. They can't just rely on the draft.
I think we got a wiener at the plate right now for Milwaukee. I
think the catcher got hit in the weenie too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's
what
we're doing. Yeah, that's what we're dealing with.
That's
right
pretty
now.
amazing, because we have the batter number 88 from Milwaukee right now, last name Wiener.
He's throwing up the X too. He's rocking number 88. He just took a huge cut. He tried to hit that thing to Glendale. A few seconds ago on that same pitch. Probably would have distracted that catcher.
Maybe it's Weimer. Is that I thought was an N, might be actually an M. It's Weimer.
But I think
false alarm, false wiener alarm.
We can call him Wiener.
Yeah. No, it's a false wiener alarm.
Let me say this, guys. It's easier to get rid of a $6 million coach than it is get rid of a $40 million quarterback.
Right, but how long do you want to keep going into that quarterback treadmill,
you know my argument.
Like, that's the thing, because I've been terrified of this, Brian, because I don't know if this team can evaluate a starting quarterback, and they got lucky with Dak.
You got to come to grips with the fact that right now there's only one guy who can take a roster like this to the Super Bowl. Yet, as an organization, you're idiotic if you were asking Dak Prescott to be better in year 8. You're like, wow, we need Dak to be one click better. Shut up, dude. You need to build him a better team, or stop talking about the Super Bowl, period. We know how good the coach is. We know how good the quarterback is. Everybody on the team that's been here playing well, we know how good they are, and damn it, they're still in their prime. You want to keep building this kind of team for another 3 or 4 years and be like, yeah, they couldn't do it. It was crazy. Our biggest regret is not getting that team a championship. Take a legitimate shot at building a team. It doesn't take anything close to where Dak is to get close there. Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy, these guys are taking teams to the Super Bowl in the NFC title game and can't hold Dak's jock. Okay, so who's good enough? Like reporters asking this question, you know what it takes to get to the Super Bowl. Okay, Brad Johnson has won one, Trent Dilfer has won one, Joe Flacco has won one. The idea that somehow Dak isn't good enough is BS. The team isn't smart enough.
Yes.
To know how to build a winner around Dak Prescott.
One of my favorite things that I saw the other day was the cash spending that the Cincinnati Bengals have done over the last decade. They're known for being a cheap team. They're always in the bottom half of the league and how much they spend in an offseason. And then they jumped all the way to second most spending in, I believe, the 2020 offseason, and the Bengals and Joe Burrow go on a Super Bowl run, and they come up just shy. And it's the one off season over 12 years where it was like, hey, they spent some money. Now, they had the quarterback on the rookie deal for sure, but you can see what that does. You go from being a middle-of-the-road team to all of a sudden, okay, we like this quarterback. Let's get him a bunch of talent on both sides of the ball. And now all of a sudden the Cincinnati bleeping Bengals are in the Super Bowl.
Was Jerry Jones' biggest mistake implementing the salary cap in the NFL?
Well, yeah.
Thinking
If you
that
want
would
Super
be a
Bowls,
good idea.
yeah.
And at the time, the Cowboys are on top of the mountain. You're a dynasty, and that players are just going to want to play for the Cowboys. And they'll take less because they want to play for the Cowboys. And now you're almost 30 years later, and clearly that's not the case.
They'll play for the Cowboys if they got to choose between the Cowboys and another team at minimum.
Right.
Right, like Barr and Peters did. They're like, well, yeah, I'd rather play for the
So
Cowboys
you're getting
than another
guys in the
team.
twilight of their career that maybe they've got
helps
just
a little bit,
bit
but-
left. But when you're talking about trying to get the best of the best, they don't want to spend that money.
Jerry thought he could have the best of both worlds, but, and he did because it allows him to grow the pie. He was more interested in getting all of the other markets interested in feeling that they got a chance. He had all of a lot of his success already. So, that's kind of where he shifted from being a shark looking to gobble up everything to, hey, I got to look out for the other parts of this league and make sure everything else is growing. And I think the businessman maybe killed the dynasty a little bit there, Wolchuk. I think that's a good point.
And now they're letting the salary cap really handcuff them. Like they're thinking, oh my gosh, this is everything. We got to make sure we can't botch the salary cap, and that's a frustrating situation.